Now I'd like to open up to the public.
It's going live.
Perfect. I'll go on your notes to verify.
Okay,
Be careful with the cable.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
No problem. You're
Motion. Okay, all's in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, motion carries. So we are open to the public, so any member of the public that wants to come forward, state your name and address and your concern.
Pam Krobolak, 49 Forest Place, Oakland Park. I'm just going to take 5 minutes of your time. I want to say thank
Would
you
you like
to the police department.
Okay.
2 months ago, I experienced mail fraud and in panic called the police chief, not knowing what to do. Not only did he walk my husband and I through step-by-step what to do, get the paperwork, the patrolman came to our home. We met with the sergeant, and I got to thank you for that, for being patient with them and understanding me. I should have been thanking them for all they did. They did it step by step, and it was a pleasure to work with them. And so many times I read me out of town after a meeting, the faults of not getting a ticket for this or that. In the meantime, they're there when we need them. And it was, a mail fraud is a lot of money out of your bank account. And they took me through the bank, the post office, and the South Hackensack Police Department as well, because it happened in South Hackensack. The bank, the post office. But they took the lead, they had the detectives handle the case, and I was a happy camper and my husband at the end when we received our money back. And it all transpired within 24 hours. So I just wanted to say thank you to them for the job they do and they're there for us. The other comment, real quick, is just to the Republicans, because I don't come to meetings, and the Democratic Party that ran campaigns this year. Thank you for a clean campaign and not receiving mail with negative propaganda. It was excellently done, and I think the taxpayers appreciate that. Thank you and have a nice holiday.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Krobolak. Any other member of the public wanting to come forward, state a concern? Okay. Seeing none, we have a motion to close. Okay, all's in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, motion carries. All right, so we are in discussion now. So let's call our first guest up to the Board of Ed. And I know you have a specific request for us.
Thank you very much.
Can I sit here? Absolutely. That's what the seats are there for.
Just, Mayor, if I may, just by way of a little bit of background. This same topic came up back in January or February of this year. And we exchanged some correspondence, not with Mr. Jacoby, but your predecessor as counsel for the board. We explored some ways of maybe addressing it, and essentially nothing happened. We didn't amend our ordinance. We thought there was a mechanism in place by use of state law and posting to address it, but I guess that hasn't really been effective or an effective tool. So I did receive some letters from council in October, which I sent along to you, and as a follow-up, they asked to be here tonight. So that's the background.
So the floor is yours.
So thank you for indulging us so we can address you. What we're looking to do, as you know, on your books right now, you do have an ordinance that prohibits parking in the William Street parking lot during school hours or whenever there's inclement weather, snow. But there's been numerous problems. Cars parked there, they're not removed when there is snow. In fact, we called the chief, or you called the chief. The chief actually issued tickets during the last snowfall. The problem is that the next morning when the kids walk to school, there's ice, kids are walking out into the road. So it really does pose a public safety hazard by having people park there. What we'd like you to do is amend the ordinance so that it prohibits parking at all times. Just like in the main parking lot, it's prohibited at all times. So we wanted to match the main parking lot. So it's only really used for authorized use by the school. And if people need to use the parking, they have to seek board permission to do it. The reason that we're coming before you, people will say, well, why don't you guys just tow it yourself? And I can tell you that there's a law called the Predatory Prevention Towing Act, which is, and I actually just argued it in the Supreme Court of New Jersey about about a month ago. The Predatory Towing Prevention Act gives police departments and law enforcement much greater latitude when they order a tow than a private entity. And so, what we're looking really to do is have it prohibited, and so if people are parked there illegally, tickets are issued, and then if you have repeat offenders, that law enforcement can call tow companies, and you guys have a whole list of towing companies that you guys authorize, and they come and tow it, and then the people deal through the towing company to retrieve their car. And I don't want to get into the details, but there's a lot of unsanitary things that are being left in the parking lot. The elementary school kids should not be walking across as they walk to school the next morning. You can envision what I'm talking about. And, you know, I think it was on Thanksgiving evening, there was arrests made in that parking lot because people were utilizing it for illegal drug transactions. So what we're looking to do is to protect really the taxpayers of Rochelle Park. Because if somebody gets hurt, if something happens in that parking lot, or because of parking kids are getting hurt on the street, it's the Board of Ed who's going to be held liable. And then really at the end of the day, it's really the Rochelle taxpayers that are being held liable if there's a lawsuit that ensues. So that's why we're looking to have this prohibition. So it's utilized for the teachers, the parents when they're meeting with teachers or staff. If there's a sporting event that the board is hosting or is authorizing people to have a sporting event in the fields there, that would be board authorized. But this overnight parking, this is not a parking lot for people to park there overnight, and frankly, it's being misused. So we think this is by far the most effective way of addressing it, is to have the town amend an ordinance that already prohibits it, which is now prohibited at all times unless authorized by the board. I think it would really go a long way to protecting the taxpayers of Rochelle Park. And it would also really protect the students and the kids as they're walking to and from school. And because the only people that really should be parking there are school employees. Just like we use our lot. And people do use the main lot when they're attending school events, etc., but they're not parked there overnight. And if they were parked there overnight, law enforcement would get home. It's no different than with your parks. You don't allow people to park overnight at your parks, or after dusk. If people are parking in parks, I'm sure your law enforcement officers find out why are they in your park. So that's what we're looking for. We understand you cannot amend an ordinance now, but we'd ask if you guys could do this in January, if we really appreciate it. It would go a long way to help us protect students and staff of the board.
I see no problem with expanding the same protection that you have on the larger lot, the main lot of the school, to the additional lot. So I would be supportive of pushing that forward as soon as possible into January.
All right, thank you very much.
Have you guys ever thought of locking that in and just have access passes and take the responsibility off of the
Yes, you do.
department?
Okay, so I'm Teresa Dutch Ravel, the Board of Education President. So at one time, not too long ago, we actually put chains and cones up. I don't know if you all saw it, but we had, they were basically plastic chains to say, please don't park here. And first day seemed okay. Second day, people were just running over the chains. Third day, they were pushing them back. So it didn't really do anything for it. So
What about something permanent?
Well, you can't, because the way you park into the Williams Street, the Williams Street parking lot is literally adjacent to the road. So you basically pull off the road and pull into the spots. So you couldn't build a fence, because if you built a fence, you couldn't utilize it. So.
Unless you have a lift gate for each of the
well, that would be hard.
spots.
That would be- yeah.
That would be a little cost
Yeah, that would be a little.
prohibitive, but.
Or if you had stanchions permanent stanchions with chains. I'm just trying to, you know, it's private property, so I'm just concerned that, you know, that this is more burden for the police department when if you're looking to keep people out of there. I don't see why something couldn't be worked out where you guys roll it off and have it open when we need to
We
open.
couldn't have from school to a walking district. So when you have kids walking in that parking lot, if it's snow covered, we can't remove it. It forces the children to walk in the street. And that's very dangerous to have a kid walking to and from school. Nowadays, everyone's on their, unfortunately, on cell phones, et cetera, they're distracted. So what we're really trying to do is make sure that we can plow the lots, make sure, and frankly, frankly, the items that we're finding in the lots after the evenings are items that kids should not be exposed to. Well, I don't know if you know what these items are. You can imagine what I'm talking about. But that's something that I think the kids should be protected from. You know, we've tried other things, but what this will do is I think it will be a deterrence for people to park there. And it's not, when we say private property, this isn't a private property like ShopRite. This is private property that's owned by the taxpayers of Rochelle Park. So we're also trying to protect the taxpayers. If a kid gets hurt, if something goes on in that parking lot, if property is damaged there, et cetera, it's not, if you're not allowed to park there and something happens, it protects ultimately the taxpayers' original park.
What kind of, what time of the day are you trying to do this? I mean, is this,
All
At
times.
all,
well,
at all times.
yeah, but the whole issue is you have mentioned just a few minutes ago, that you're saying, well, if you have an event where people are going to be parking there during, because it's a school event, how are the police supposed to know that?
So what I explained last night was that, each time at my board meeting to the public that asked that question, pretty much the same. Each time that people apply to use the fields for soccer, softball, whatever, on that piece of paper for an application, the board approves that.
Mhm.
It'll be on that application now, that a box will be checked that you can use the parking lot at that time.
Okay.
And that will give, if we know there's an activity going on, there's gonna be parents there, they'll have that approved from the board at that
So
time.
then the school's going to contact the police department that the people out.
Well, I
on those
believe
periods of time?
I believe the police department can kind of see the people on the soccer field or baseball field that are playing there, but if there's just something that would be different, I would think that. the
Oh,
superintendent-
Yeah, we could absolutely, they could
We can
absolutely,
absolutely say
superintendent.
But you want to take their judgment out of it,
Yeah,
because what if I show
that's
up with
really the
5
point.
people and start playing
No,
soccer?
I think it's
They're
good,
gonna
good point.
just
It's
figure
very-
out
The
how-
business office can absolutely provide that to the police department, saying that, the town rec soccer is authorized to use this on Saturdays, parking is permitted. The town little league is authorized to use it on Saturdays. You're really feeling, and if you have people that are parked there illegally during the workday, if people are parked there illegally, and we're there, or not me, but the business office, they call the police and say, we have illegally parked people here. The problem is that it's in the evenings and nights when people aren't supposed to be there. There's not.
But during a normal business day, you can call the police, say that there is a vehicle in violation. Most cases, what happens with the police department with those type of issues is that the property owner signs the complaint, the police don't.
Well, that's what we're asking,
Okay.
to change them and.
So I'm just saying, under those set of circumstances, okay? So now we're talking about something entirely different, I understand all that, but if you just say, for argument's sake, that you're restricting, if we were to use like our overnight parking, which is no parking between 3 and 6, I think to a certain extent you're accomplishing the same thing, because the vehicles would have to be removed, correct?
Well, if it was just limited to 3 to 6, the problem is that when you have snowfall, just like we had the other day, the staff from the custodial staff that comes in and does the plowing, they come in at 4:35 in the morning to salt and plow. There's cars there, they can't do anything. They're literally stuck, so they can't clear it for the students. So that's a fundamental problem. It's 3 to 6. I think that would not be restrictive enough.
And
we also-
If it's snow covered.
Well, your
have that
ordinance already
already.
provides no parking at any times in
You
the
have
main
copies
lot.
of the, you have
I
copies.
don't see
Yeah,
this
we should.
I don't see this as a problem. We have the same restrictions that they're asking for on the main lot at the school. Let's expand it to the extent of the property that the school is in charge of. I don't see this as a problem. I don't see this as a township issue, getting confused about anything. Yes, the police officers should be notified if there is an event that's going on that they might not visibly be able to see. Then maybe it's something that's inside, but all events, yes, send a permit over to the school to notify that there might be additional parking.
What we could do, if I may suggest, is when we approve it on our agenda, we could ask the board secretary to send it to the police department, so they would be aware of the list that would be approved. So in other words, if the soccer wants to do it, they'll know that soccer's gonna be there from April to whatever. I'm sorry, from the fall, the beginning of fall to the November, usually they go to. So we can do that, we can have our business administrator can ask them to do that for the superintendent and send it to the police department. So they are aware that those children will be there. I mean, it's not that hard to do, it's pretty simple. But we approve it at each board meeting, you will see a list of what the board approves, usage of the school facility and the grounds. That's what's on our agenda. So that's very simple fix. If you'd like to do that, we can do. I believe.
Right, because I mean, right now, there's a whole series of signs that really
Yeah,
make
we
no
had
sense.
pictures,
quite
yeah.
honestly.
They would need to be changed, obviously, because they're all so
Oh.
confusing. They're all, every one of them is different. The ordinance is not correct.
Right, so all you have to do is you say,
Right, but that's
you
the
say,
I know.
parking allowed only during permitted school use.
Right.
More signs,
Or you say no-
maybe
no-
sign every other spot.
That's exactly, that's what you're saying. A sign every other spot, no parking pursuant to ordinance, blah, blah, blah. And I think you're right, we could have consistency. And the same sign should be when you're going into the main lot. The main lot's easy to block up, as you said, because you could literally close it off. But then you can't put a
Parking
purpose.
isn't really,
Right,
it's not like state, you know, flying
Yeah.
list.
right.
Yeah, right.
Before we embark on, yeah, we'll do all this on.
And then the other thing, Mr. Davidson, that you mentioned was the ticket, to sign off on the ticket.
Well,
How does that work now?
Well, in most cases, what winds up happening with the private parking, even in the main lot, in most cases, we would have the school do that. I mean, I'm not with the police department anymore, so again, that's how it's done years
They do that
ago.
now when they.
No, the chief came out, they actually, when they were parked there,
Right.
the violation of the ordinance, the snow, they came out and they issued.
Yeah, the police can issue it, if there's an ordinance on the books, the police can issue it. They're reluctant to do it because then they have to go to court, if somebody contests it, they have to go to court.
No, for a
testify, and
minimum
so
ticket,
forth.
and
Yeah.
it's very expensive.
Well,
to have
How
laws
Bob's concern is,
support
if you're
minimum
ticketing someone
per hour.
during the day and it's not because of the snow type of thing, then it puts the burden back on the police to say that they're enforcing something that someone else reported, right? Is that we kind of,
Well, you know, it's,
not like it's
I'm
supposed
trying to
to
make it
I think the
more.
details that we, about this,
Behind it.
we can work that out.
Right.
I fully support doing it. Do we have any other questions?
My only
While we're here.
concern is the tickets. Who signs it?
But we're not
Complaints
gonna be
officer.
able to have those answers tonight.
All right, well, then I have no problem moving forward with it. but that would be
We're gonna
something
have to do it after the new year anyway, because we don't have enough time to get through as ordinances are concerned, so let's,
Mr. Patel, I can send the ordinance, I marked up the ordinance, I took the ordinance, I marked up the red line. I think I sent you, but I
Yeah.
can take you the words.
Yeah, send it over. I actually think back in February, thinking that this was kind of a routine thing, I think I had actually drafted it back then, but then we never acted on it.
Right.
But
I'll just
let's
send it over
send me
to
what you
you.
have, and then we'll introduce it and have further discussion in January.
Thank you very much for taking the time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Would
Happy
you,
holidays, guys.
would you want the chief, is that what you want?
Yeah, I think we should
The
have.
chief? Or would you like us to discuss it with the chief? How would you want to do that? Would you like us to discuss it? How do you want to work?
Well, that's fine, listen, you know, if you want to talk to the speak to the chief prior to, that's fine too, I don't have.
Okay.
That's what's really up to the mayor.
Mayor?
I'm the liaison to the police department, so I will gladly sit down with the chief and hash out the details.
Okay.
Make sure that it works out.
All right, great, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Happy holidays.
Thank you. Okay, next up, we have Boswell, do our engineering report.
Good evening. Good evening. All right, you have our status report dated December 9th, 2019. So to touch on a few items for ROP 101, that's the Rochelle Avenue, Railroad Ave intersection. I spoke with the administrator yesterday. He asked me to follow up with the county, so I reached out to the county engineer today and I asked him to talk to his staff and have them push this project along. It's taking way too long. All we're waiting for from them is a signage and striping plan, and then we can complete our plans. Ken Job's wrapping up the easement acquisitions. So really, we're waiting on the county. So I spoke to the county engineer today. He's going to provide me with an update, and then I'll provide that to
Did you
the
get
town.
the email from Ken
I
this
did.
afternoon?
Yes.
Something came today.
Yeah.
It looks,
It was late this
yeah,
afternoon.
it looks straightforward.
Yeah, okay.
For
I'm sorry, what we're trying to do here is we don't want to lose this year.
Right.
That's the biggest issue. You know, and we have to do the acquisitions, and that's all part and parcel of what's happening with the county. There seems to be one thing after another, and we keep on getting these delayed.
For ROP 102, that's the Sprout Brook stream cleaning. I had a lengthy meeting with our environmental department yesterday. I provided the township with the application and the check request tonight. So we need the township to execute the application. So, Mayor, you have to sign the 3 locations, it's all marked out. We need a check from the township to go to DEP for $2,000. And once we get that back, so that'll all be sent directly to our office.
Send it back to you.
Yeah, give it directly to us.
We'll try to get the check by the end of the week.
Okay, and then we'll get that to DEP. So that'll be submitted to DEP by the end of this year. It'll be submitted, right after we get the check. For ROP 138, that's the Telfra 120 West Passaic Street project. At the request of administration, administration coordinated a meeting with DEP, the developer, and the township representatives to go over some of our concerns with respect to that project. Our main concerns were potential issues with flooding and things like that. There's a lot of debris that was placed in an area that is in the floodway. We told them that had to be removed immediately. All that material's been removed. They had until November 30th to remove it. All that's been taken out. We met on site with DEP. DEP understands that it's a site under construction, so that there are going to be at times where there's going to be areas disturbed. But we did ask the contractor or the developer there's a stockpile of soil. We asked them to take that stockpile, get it to where it was going on site, so it's not taking up storage in the floodplain. And everybody, and then we had a pre-construction meeting after that between our office, the township, and the developer to make sure everybody was on the same page as far as what has to be done. And so far, I think they're working fine. We have a guy out there every so often keeping an eye on things, so we'll continue to keep the township informed on that. For ROP 149, that's the state aid application for 2020. I'm happy to report that we submitted a grant application on behalf of the township. We received the local aid grant in the amount of $186,000 for Oldest Street from Rochelle Ave to Route 17. So we anticipate this project being in construction this year. For ROP 153, that's the stormwater outfall mapping. That plan will be submitted to the township on Monday. For the 2020 road, curb, and sidewalk program, we're currently in the design phase for that project. We expect to go out to bid towards the end of winter, with that being a spring project.
Because I know we had a conversation earlier this afternoon. We spoke, prior to the meeting, we spoke about possibly trying to add the Older Streets project. At this particular point in time, Mike, do you want to just
Sure.
go on with that?
Sure. So right now, the 2020 road program is Madison Avenue and Marina Street. Marina Street is a DOT grant that we got last year. Bob asked me if we could put in Oldest Street with those 2 streets. Let's just have a bigger project. The only concerns we have with that are we have to wait till we get the agreement between us and the state for Oldest Street. And that's going to usually take some time. And what I don't want to happen is that it pushes Madison and Marinas further into the year. So I think Oldest Street is a big enough project. It's not a $60,000 project. It's similar in scope to Terrace Avenue, where we went out to bid with that as a single project. So it's going to be in the, I'm going to get you the estimate tomorrow. I forget what the overall project budget was. That's another thing you have to budget
But
for.
it could be done this year.
It can definitely be done.
It just
this year.
would be done as a 3-street package.
That's correct.
Perfect.
And you were just thinking that,
Yeah.
maybe get a better
Better
price.
get a better price
Right.
if we put them all together.
Right, you would.
Yeah,
But I don't want to delay the other projects
I don't
further
either.
into the year.
I
So
don't either.
let's get those 2 done.
Madison's already been delayed
Yeah,
a year,
so
so.
we're not gonna be getting prices that are so outrageous because we went out on Oldest by ourselves.
Right.
Because it's still a significant project. It's gonna be a $200,000 project.
Yeah.
Which is, it's a lot. It's not a $45,000 project where we get killed on it.
And we're probably looking, as long as we have funding in place, we're probably looking at August.
Yeah, summer project.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic, just as long as we get them done.
Yeah. That's what we do. And that's all I have.
Okay. Any questions for the engineer?
No, he answered mine.
Quick question, I was talking to our tax assessor, and he said, our tax maps are basically ancient. And he said they've been encountering problems, even Tulsa was having a problem across the street identifying actually where the lots boundaries are. He said that they held on basically for a week, they were trying to figure them out.
Can I just jump in for one quick second? Because I was gonna bring that up. We, and it's actually on the list of discussion items, the revaluation. We're gonna have to do a revaluation next year for the following year. What we can do, because the tax maps are messed up, they're old, they haven't been updated. But because we're gonna have to do a revaluation, we can do the maps and bond it as part of the maps as part of the revale, so.
That's what I'm trying to weed in.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And trying to ask Mike what his assessment is and what benefit he sees us getting from getting our maps digital, accurate,
It's
completely updated.
It makes sense to
Would it
just,
speed up the project in town? Do you see it?
it'll be an overall benefit to the township. It'll greatly serve the tax assessor. They'll be able to easily access the data. Fault of my own, I need to reach out to Ken Joke to get the tax maps, because he still has them. I have to get them transferred to our office. But it makes sense to get them digitized, and at the time of a revaluation, that's the perfect time to do it.
When will you have the fund? For the revaluation?
That it's gonna be a 2000. We spoke to him.
Yeah, I got some stuff.
So the whole thing is, is that also part and parcel of what has to be done?
The maps, no, technically, no, but we need them done.
It would be the time to do it.
Bundle it, it's a work on.
So
Really,
21?
I think it's 20,
We're gonna
do it in
next
21
year, but
or 22.
yeah, 1 year.
Do it in
So-
2021 for, the book's 2022.
The soil-
Yeah, we have to accomplish it.
Right, correct. It was originally gonna be a year sooner. We never technically got the order from the board, but it was coming.
I
So,
I can tell you that it definitely has to be done.
yeah.
Is that something, as far as digitizing the maps, is that something that you can do in-house?
Yes, that's what we do.
Then you can overlay the zoning maps and there's a lot of good things that come.
Street maps, everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we do that, we've done that for a number of communities in New Jersey.
What's the cost that's generally associated with something like that?
I'll get that for you. You know, it's,
I've gotten prices.
yeah. Sounds like we'll be below 40. And it also depends on the effort that's required as part of the revaluation. You know, you gotta lump all that together. But I'll get your price on that. Yeah.
We can talk the infrastructure into it.
Yeah, that's
Things like the,
eventually you can drag in.
yeah, things like drainage and alcohol, yeah.
Yeah, sewer lines.
Yeah, it's my understanding the township doesn't have accurate water and sewer maps. So and that's something you build. You know, it's nice to have a GIS system. You know, it's a luxury, but you know, but you can gather information as you go. Somebody comes in with a development, you can get them to get their as-built, and you know, you have them provided in a AutoCAD format, and then you can import it to your system, and you can build your system as you go. You know, with route, T being aligned, we can document the size, the location, all this, and you know, build it as you go. But that's down the road.
All right. Any other questions from the township committee? We do have, do we have any questions from the members of the public? We usually do open up for.
I just have one question about the outfall mapping. Are we still talking about the outfalls from the brook that we were talking like 5 years ago? Outfalls. Outfall, yeah, is this,
It's two projects. It's two different things. The outfall mapping is just a mapping of the locations of the outfalls. I'm sorry, it's required by the NJDEP. It's just a document that they require. The other project that I spoke on earlier was the Sprout Brook project, where we expect the application to be submitted to the DEP within the next week or so. And then the township can go in and repair the outfalls that need to be repaired, and do whatever minor street cleaning we need to do.
I know we get $65,000 for that one.
Yes.
Awesome.
No, I'm gonna reach out to DEP and make sure that that's still, in place.
I think it was down to 47 at some person.
Yeah.
Spent something on
Yes.
something. When you say, outfall repair, how are they repairing it? They can put the stone down?
Sure.
This is one on my property.
Well, if it's on your property, it might be a property owner's responsibility. So, the township's gonna go through and do the ones that the township's responsible for. And it'll be, repair the pipe, put in stone as needed.
Well, I'm not paying for that. No. I'm
So that's on the record.
You expect people to pay for that?
Depends, if it's in, the project limits, the township has to go through and assess who's responsible for what repairs. If it's a township-owned facility, the township will do it. If it's private, line or system, then that owner would be required.
Is it a right-
It's on my property, but it's not right.
Is it in a right of way? I mean, there could be in a right of way.
If it's in an easement, it might be a township.
Well, yeah, we'll look at it.
It has to be evaluated.
Because I didn't get a letter asking to come onto my property.
Well, do we have permission to have our engineer go to your property to take a look at the outfall?
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's nothing wrong with it. It's not broken or cracked or anything. It just goes like this and then the brook is down here. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What's your address?
180 Chestnut Street.
All right, I will have our guy look at it.
All right, and we have a member of the public in the back.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
I'm not sure if you mentioned, or you may have mentioned before, regarding the Chestnut and Railroad in Brookville Avenue.
Yes.
I didn't hear the whole report.
All right, we're waiting for the county. The county has to provide us with a signage and striping plan. We've been in contact with them for quite some time to get that. I reached out to the county engineer today to ask him to push his guys along, and he said he would follow up on it and let me know what the status is. So,
Once you get that, are you closer to?
yeah, then we just have to finalize the easements, and then we expect to be out to bid and into construction this year, 2020.
Thank you very much.
All right, any other member of the public? Seeing none? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's wish everybody a happy and healthy holiday season.
Very much. But we'll see you before that.
Well, I'm going to see you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you
very much.
If I don't see everybody, have a happy and healthy holiday.
Okay, a couple meetings in a row, we've had questions about parking on Lexington Ave. Last meeting, I asked Mr. Davidson to follow up with that situation there. Could you give us an update?
So I did review the current ordinance, and the street from Rochelle Avenue to High Street, as it stands right now, could be posted. It's right on the books, it's just that it's not. So there's no, it's just the fact that there's no time.
Posted, what's the ordinance say in regard to posting?
Well,
Anything we come up with?
no, what it is that right now, what they did, when we put the new no parking signs in, they went from Rochelle Avenue to the top of the hill, just past West End. Okay. The way the ordinance is written, we can go with the rest of the signs, the entire street. Now, I did look at, there was one I saw that was quite interesting. I just wanted to bring to your attention. Was in Woodridge, I don't know if anybody's been in there or not, and I actually spoke with the township administrator, I went to the township clerk there also, to see how it's working with them over there. And they have a no parking just basically from 8 until 10 a.m. All right, but it also says, other than permit parking. So I found that to be interesting because I know in the past, one of the things we've been discouraged utilities is doing the permit parking because there could be some issues as far as the state is concerned. And it's actually required to usually.
So we just had a conversation up here while you were trying to fix the machine. Yeah. We did talk about limiting the time of the no parking so that it provides relief for the residents. But even if that creates a problem, after a little bit, we can start the conversation to issue permits that residents can receive so that they don't get chased during the timeframes that we're looking to block. Let's just say people that should be parked.
Yeah, I think the ultimate goal is to keep commuter parking down to,
And that's how they're doing it. Yeah. So.
and I think we
just
pretty
look at
much
the number of
spoke
outlets.
about those times too, 8 to 10.
So we currently have the ordinance and the right to sign the entire street
Right, to what,
to High Street.
yes,
But the current ordinance might not be exactly what we're looking for.
right, so, yeah, I just want to bring that to.
Time frame is what you're saying.
They want to do something different.
Right now,
Well,
it's 2 hour, right now, it's limited to 2 hour parking.
Yeah,
Right.
Yes.
And 2-hour parking, I don't think works for anyone.
I'm looking at it right here.
So let's,
Except some Saturday and Sunday. We're gonna do that except Saturday and Sunday? Might be
Yeah.
smart,
Yeah.
because I think that would be smart, because then you have relief built in from the residents over the
That's the
weekend.
issue anyway.
Yeah, you shouldn't have the commuter parking in.
so let's address that. You have to introduce an ordinance, so it's gonna take too long for this year. So that's something first on the list.
So we can start writing something up, right?
I have
We agree 8 to
I
10,
have a copy of their ordinance.
8 to 10?
Yeah, no
And
problem with that.
there's a number of other streets that I think this can apply to.
Right.
Possibly Howard.
Well, the Harvey. yeah.
Harvey.
Then Parkway, Becker, same name down the
Even,
road.
when we were talking about the parking commission, a lot of, there was one member that lived on Madison, and he said they just went to Madison.
Right, they moved.
Or, yeah, they just moved off of Lexington, went to Madison, they just keep
Right, I
going.
mean, the history, again,
Yeah.
with my experiences, unfortunately, that's what happens.
Right.
But I was looking at this, and it's a little bit different, and maybe, again, whether it really is gonna work or not, you just really never know, and it is gonna push somebody.
Well, if we redo the ordinance, can we just put some of the streets in that we think may be an issue without actually implementing the signs right away? So if down the road we choose to do that, we can just.
Well, you already have a list by all the various ones we have already on there.
In the ordinance that you're talking about,
The
Lexington,
current
from
ordinance,
Rochelle to High
Yeah,
Street.
there are,
Right.
there's a number of streets that if we have to do new signage, we're not gonna be able to do them all in one year.
No, of course.
So,
But you can start a list from this intersection to this intersection on this street.
Well, we've had residents come in and
You know,
talk about
it
Harvey
applies.
being
Yeah.
bad, so you know that some
yeah,
of these streets
and
are.
Harvey's on that list.
As long as it's covered, I think that's fine.
Yeah.
All right. Retirement of Police Officer Cassidy.
Just to make it official, Officer Cassidy will be completing his 25th year of service. He's retiring, his last day of work will be January 31st. And that's next meeting, we'll just have to pass a resolution for his, call, it basically is by at the end of the year. And
Do we have any idea how much that is?
I will have that, definitely have that number for you.
Okay. Any questions?
Resolution January, no.
January.
Next week.
No, January. Because I mean, yeah, that's fine.
I just wanted to make sure.
Just before his service
Just
date
before
ends.
the service is over, correct. Yeah.
All right, so the next item,
How we get those issued.
the next item on the agenda is non-contractual employee hours, but we're going to be discussing that in closed session under personnel issues. So I don't think any conversation up here is going to be, I guess, informed about exactly what we can do and what we can't do. So let's just move on to the next one. Redeveloper pay-to-play ordinance is on the agenda for next meeting for adoption. So it's on there already. We can have a discussion either tonight or we can continue the discussion next week. Any discussion on that? Okay. All right, DPW salary contract negotiation. So, this afternoon, Assemblywoman Boniface and I, as well as the administrator, met with the DPW negotiating team. They did come forward with a proposal as to what they were looking for in their contract. I'm not going to make that public right now since it's a continuing negotiation at this point. But we are, I think it's safe to say that we're, on good terms and we're fairly close to a reasonable contract for on both ends, for us, for the municipality, and also the union. So I think by next meeting, we could possibly have some news to report on having a contract move forward, possibly by the end of the year.
What are the terms of these contracts? 3 or 5 years?
This one's 5.
This one is fine.
We've had 3s in the past, but we kind of gone to 5.
It's like over 2021, going forward.
2020.
Yeah,
2020 is the first year.
2020.
Yep. Yeah, as far as the English.
Okay. Reval 2021, I think we had a conversation on this already. We are up for a revaluation, and we're going to have to figure out financing on how to pay for it. It's possible that we could bond for that, so that would be good.
Should be able to bond for it over 5 years. We should
Yeah.
be able to bond for 5 years.
Yeah,
And
it's
if we want to do the tax mapping, we could put that in with it.
Yep, we could knock it in with the rebound.
The last time I think we did this was, I think, about around 2010.
Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah.
And I think the cost back then was about 120,000. So I talked to Jamie and he said he thinks it might be in the ballpark, like closer to 150.
Yeah, I think
That's without the,
without the math.
It's not just revaluation, right?
My question is there any, is it, we can still, do a bond if we want to do it this coming year, if we want to put in this budget year, or is there some kind of requirement that doesn't allow us to do it? So if we can get it done, then what's,
In 2020.
Why not, if we can pull it off?
Well, that's why I tried to, that's why I put in for the extension board, because I didn't know if we were going to be able to.
I'm just talking, I'm not
Yeah, it's
talking
gotta
I'm not
be
talking
big.
about the whole thing, I'm only talking about the mapping.
Oh, the map.
If I was talking about doing that, would it make sense to get that done? This is gonna be a big project.
I don't think you can, I think you can only bond the map if it's done with the.
That's my question.
That's the way I understand it, yeah.
We're not going to bond for 40,000.
Right,
No, we can't.
yeah. And it makes sense, I think, to do it all at once anyway.
sounds like it makes sense.
Yeah.
I just want to thank Mark for getting on top of this and writing the letter that our tax assessor read to the Board of Taxation and giving us the 1-year delay. So I just want to thank you, Mark.
You're welcome.
Good job.
Even before they ordered it, they did these things. Yeah. It was coming though, so.
Yeah.
I don't know, I have 5 questions, because I saw all the past lists and we were never mentioned, that's why I thought I'd just jump on it now.
Yeah, that's good.
All right, any other questions? All right, now, the ambulance corps, so I'll take the lead on this. So early last year in 2018, as one of the first initiatives of the new leadership of town, there was a decision to find supplemental support for the township ambulance services. First, there was a push to have Paramus come in and provide the services during the day, or at some point, a 24-hour service. And then there was, with some major pushback from members of the community, we extended the option and we explored Hackensack Hospital, and we currently have that service intact. At the time, our ambulance services were providing between 66 and about 70% of coverage of all calls that were in town, and they created approximately $140,000 to $160,000 in revenue, which well exceeded the operating expenses. It provided funding for training, for for equipment purchases, and it certainly, exceeded the expectation, or I think, of what we were looking for out of the billing process of the ambulance corps. Even though this information was readily available, there still was a decision to eliminate the daytime service. And it also meant that we would have to pay out of pocket through the township budget for services provided to our town. Over the last 18 months, it has been nearly impossible to train new volunteers that are probationary members to become full senior members of the Corps. There simply weren't enough calls to actually have enough time under their belt and experience to promote them to senior members. And this has created a lack of available members to answer calls. And that led to diminishing response numbers as well. So as of January 2020, the Rochelle Park Ambulance Corps will be ceasing operations. The volunteers at this point will be unable to sustain a reasonable schedule with the remaining volunteers that exist. I know how hard this was, and it has been for members of the Corps to make this decision, and I want to thank them for their service and effort to provide for our residents. And this is something that we'll have to revisit as far as a pathway forward in this department for the next year. So one of the reasons why I went through the history is because the decisions we make up here have long-lasting impacts on our community. And unfortunately, this decision of some time ago is one that I think we'll regret in the long term. So thank you very much for your service to our community. And for now, this is something that we need to discuss going forward, but thank you very much. And I'm sorry to hear that. Do we have any other discussion on the ambulance? Okay. Is there any member of the ambulance corps that's here that would like to make any type of statement? Anyone? No?
Well, if I can, I mean, I just want to also thank Steve and his fellow lieutenants for all the work that they have done throughout this very difficult time. They have done everything that they possibly can do prior to making this decision. We at the office have tried to work with them as much as we possibly could as well. It just, unfortunately, they just could not sustain membership in order to maintain and keep going the way it is currently. So, but I can tell you that the dedication of these people were tremendous. You couldn't ask for anything more, and highly respect the work that you did and greatly appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay. Do you have any comments, or do you want to come and address the township committee at a later point? Thank you. No. All right, attorney's report.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a few things. There's a couple of things that are not listed here I just want to touch on, but the 120 West Passaic DEP issues, I sent along to everyone copies of all the DEP permits that have been issued for across the street. It was pretty much discussed at the last meeting after we had that meeting with the DEP representatives and the developer. So I think those issues have been satisfactorily addressed. It's been confirmed there are no violations. The project is ongoing. With regard to that property, we finally got to the point where the redevelopers agreement was executed. It was within the past week. So the mayor signed it. We've circulated copies. So that's the next step in that whole development process. Also, something that came in this week, which is going to require some discussion, is the report, a financial report from not our township planner, but Mr. Benke, who did a financial, right, the economic planner, regarding the request of this developer for the township to enter into a pilot or financial agreement for that project. So it's a very comprehensive, very technical report. I sent it out to everyone for review. It's to be maintained as a confidential report right now. It does require some discussion and analysis, and there's going to be an ordinance that has to be adopted if we implement this type of pilot program. Given the time of year and the fact that we just received that report, theoretically we could, and the developer would like us to act on it right away, but that would take some doing. I mean, I think we need to have the planner in, have it make a presentation. There's a lot of technical information in there that's, other than perhaps Mark, I think a lot of us, it's a little bit difficult to digest. But again, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that the developer wants to move forward with the project, and theoretically anyway, it could be done, it could be introduced and adopted by the end of the year. So if that's what we collectively want to try to do, we could do that.
I think it's important to have Mr. Beneke in, and I said so in the email, because I think it's important that the residents understand with the pilot program, because it's totally different than what I read through, and it's complicated, but what I read is totally different than the preconceived notions that I had on and the revenue to the town and how the structures work. So I think it would be important to have Mr. Beneke come in and explain how it works.
I mean,
it doesn't look like it's one lump sum, it's not a one lump sum.
Well, it's tiered. After the first 5 years, they give us 11% or 12%.
If you recall, there's been some articles in the record about these type of programs and that other towns have done, and there's always this public pushback because there's not a complete understanding of all the financial ins and outs of it. So
because it's predicated upon the revenue that they generate on the property.
Correct. So, but anyway, it's there, it's in your possession, take a look at it. We can put it on next week's agenda for discussion, although it's not a work session next week, but.
Scroll, we were, I emailed you to see if we can get Mr. Beneke in for, the work session.
I'd like to see if we can get it in before the end of the year. The reason why we did that is that this committee approved the redevelopment program for that site. So I think this committee should at least have eyes on and make a decision on this thing, or at least have discussion on it before we go forward. So with that, I'm going to add it to the agenda, and if Mr. Beneke can make it to the next meeting, then let's add him to that.
The 18th, everybody, the 18th.
That's fine, Mr. Mayor. That's fine, but I honestly, I wouldn't vote for it unless he's here to speak, so if he can't come next week.
I agree.
Yes,
So-
I agree with Nick, I wouldn't vote on it until we're explaining it.
Yep. That's not a problem. I think that's.
But I'm fine if he comes next week, I don't have a problem with it, but I just want to
Keep in mind, if he were to come make a presentation and he wanted to move forward, we'd have to introduce an ordinance, and we'd have to have a special meeting to adopt it, so, because we don't have another meeting after next week, so.
And you can't do it in the next year.
You
You have to finish everything.
You would have to introduce
I have
it.
to advertise as well.
Yeah,
Advertise, like, 10-day advertisement.
Yeah, it would be,
Or we could do it at the signed item.
No, it's the same meeting, it's in the year.
well,
I mean,
Well, it's before we,
okay.
before we reorder.
but still, it would be unusual, but it is an official meeting of this township committee, so, I mean,
That's
a number of
done
things that would have
to,
to.
that's done to conclude any of the business
Yeah,
that is
yeah.
left from the year before. So it is a legitimate time to conduct business.
One step at a time to see if he's available. There's some litigation, I'm not gonna go into the details, but I'm sure you saw that the lawsuit that was filed by an ex-police officer, kind of interesting that the whole suit was thrown out on summary judgment, which in legal circles, it's kind of an extraordinary thing to happen in a case like that. But But it did happen, and at least for now, the case is over. It could be appealed, but it was a good job by our insurance company and the attorneys that they retained.
She's fantastic.
And then the only last thing is 49 East Passaic. We heard from an attorney for the buyer finally, and we should be on track to get that closed on schedule before the end of the year, so.
Is that actually came to the office this afternoon?
Awesome. And that's all I have.
All right, thank you very much. Anything under correspondence that we want to discuss? Okay. All right, no old business, new business.
Okay, we're gonna have payment of bills for December. We have 2 raffle licenses. We're awarding the towing contract for 2020. We'll have an appropriation transfer. We're executing the 911 agreement with Paramus for 2020. And we have a hearing and adoption for political contributions, hearing and adoption for billboards, and closed session resolution from tonight. And that's it so far.
All right, administrator's report.
Okay, this have a very short meeting. I don't have a report today because I just returned from vacation, as you all know. I did meet with Suez on Lake Street yesterday, reference to doing because that road has to be repaid. Right now, it's between the developer and Suez as to, because there were 2 separate jobs that took place there. That really is their issue that they're going to have to deal with. However, I made it very clear to them that this has to be, that they're not going to be able to break it up. I don't care how they do it financially, but as far as the job is concerned, it has to be done by one contractor from like the end of Oak Street right to Rochelle Avenue. Okay?
Are they doing both sides of the street?
They have to be the entire length of the street. And the other aspect of it is that we don't want to do any asphalt work at this particular point in time of the year, so we've done it sometime in April. Just so that you're all aware of that. Pretty much with all the other things we've already discussed between the engineer and township attorney, so pretty much have everything covered.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. Committee report. Mr. Bajan. Mr. Lubowski.
Yes, I have a couple of things. I just want to say that we had the tree lighting the other night, which was awesome. Whoever showed up, it was a really great time. I know Committee Boniface had the horse and buggy. I know you got a lot of props for that.
And help.
It's a good campaign.
I'll talk about it.
No, but it was awesome. I wanted to let everyone know that the fire department inspection was completed. Last night I inspected all personnel equipment owned by the township. And on October 18th, the mayor performed an inspection of personnel in uniform. So obviously everything was great and it passed. I took a picture last night. What did you think? The cameras, thermal imaging cameras, pretty cool, right? That was cool. Yeah, cool. And then just so you know, on Saturday, December 21st this year is the Santa ride through town with the fire department. Usually done on Christmas Eve. It's getting done it's going to be held on the 21st this year at 4 o'clock at the start. And I'll mention it again in my report next week. That's it.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Boniface.
Mine's short, but don't forget the styrofoam packaging collection. It's in Hackensack, Saturday, December 28th at the Hackensack Yacht Club, 50 Schaefer Place, which I looked up where that is. It's on South River Street between Route 80 and the Taco Bell. If you know where the ShopRite is, it's in there. And it on the east side, heading towards the river. The other thing I want to thank everybody that was involved in the Christmas tree lighting. A lot of people have thanked me personally for the event. The event took a lot of elves to make it successful. It just wasn't me. The Recreation Committee did a lot of deciding to give the giveaways. The committee members also donated the new tree, lights, decorations. We also had residents get involved and helped us that night, donate their time on the evening. The only thing I did was want to hire the horse and carriage. It was something, when I went to last year's, I said, we got to do something here. And years ago, my neighbor of my brother's had rented one for a party they had. So I just looked it up. Somebody told me how I found them. I said, I Googled them. And the next thing I did was I actually booked them for that night, not knowing how we were gonna pay for it. But I went to Bob and I said, Bob, is there a way we can pay for this for the town? And Bob came through with the way to pay for it. And it just shows that, but also the residents coming out and attending make it even better. You see the little kids wearing their reindeer light up antlers. But that's what the town is all about, getting together like that and having a great time. And it was great to see everybody on the committee there and all the residents, and I just can't thank everybody. It wasn't me, I just had an idea and we went with it. So that's all I have to say. Thank you. Yeah, like I had compliments, people said to me, Linda, the sound of the horses' hoofs going down the street was unbelievable. And it was things like that, that people running after there was a couple running after the carriage down the street, and I'm like, we'll be back. You know, and it just, that's what really, I could spend all the tax money in the world to do stuff like that. That's all I have, thank you.
Thank you. I don't have a report tonight. I'll definitely have something for next meeting. Clerk's report.
The only thing is the meeting is next week, the next meeting is the 18th.
Good.
That's good.
I did go to, I do want to say that the event was great, and riding around the street, you know, my wife was like, wow, we're really going to go on a carriage ride through the streets of Rochelle Park, and I said, yeah, absolutely. And halfway through, she goes, it's one of the most peaceful times I've ever had in town. It was really nice, and I think it was the highlight of the event, and it was just well attended. I know it's always a well attended event, but it was something different, something special that I know the residents did appreciate. And every year, Recreation puts on a great event, and this year was the same as well. So thank you very much for all those that were involved. All right, public portion. Motion to open to the public?
Make a motion.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, motion carries. So we're open to the public. Please come forward, state your name and address and your concern, and address the committee. Okay, anyone?
I just had a quick question about the billboard ordinance.
Just please state your name and address.
Christine Muller, 123 Forest, about the billboard ordinance. Would you take into consideration any of the thoughts that the planning board gave?
Yeah, I can, we actually, we got that a couple hours ago only, so, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna review, everybody has a copy of it though, so, I'm gonna review it and, see if we can make some requested changes and still adopt next week, so they were good thoughts, but as you may realize, there's a limitation on what you can change between introduction of an ordinance and adoption. You can make minor changes, but you can't make substantive changes. Otherwise, you have to reintroduce it, which we don't have time to do this year. So the question's going to become whether we can do that and still make those changes and still adopt it next week. The alternative would be simply to adopt it as is and then just change it in January. So, but yes, we did get them. I knew they were coming, but so we'll take a look at it, and if we can incorporate them by next week, we'll do that.
Did you just found today or yesterday?
Did they come yesterday? You did
I
today?
only got it today.
I got it today.
Yeah, I got it today. I think it came through today. I mean, I had some inkling of what was coming, but yeah, we got the letter today. Not that that's a criticism or anything, it's just,
We had a meeting in November, I just don't know, So I was just wondering.
It's dated today.
It's dated today.
Is that from Auburn?
It's from Chairman.
Yeah.
yeah, and then again, it's not a criticism. I had spoken to the lawyer, I knew there were some changes coming, but
Well, they were just thoughts,
yeah, no, absolutely.
We spent a little time on it, you know, we didn't have nothing on the agenda, so people got dragged out of a party, we came from home to do this, and I'm just wondering, you know.
Yeah, we will, we were actually surprised that we didn't have, written confirmation of what we thought was coming. But I'm glad we have it now, and if we can incorporate it this time, we'll issue an update in January.
Thank you.
Your time is valuable, and we appreciate it, so thank you. All right, any other member of the public? Okay, seeing none, can I have a motion to close the public portion? Motion. All right, we have a second.
Second.
All right, all those in favor? Any abstentions? Any nays? Any opposed? No. Any abstentions? Okay, motion carries. So we are out of public portion, and then can I have a motion? We're gonna do the closing here. So unfortunately, we're gonna kick everyone out of the room. We do have a couple of issues, but, any motion to go into close?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. The one exception that we are going to do, and this is, common practice, is that we allow for the, newly, or elected to be, to come in and meet with, so that's the only, additional person that's.
Santa arrived, we were on the Facebook page.
Yeah.
So, I emailed the way
I
I'm
hope I get to find out.
Hackensack right now is doing the overflow, and then January